nice.
All right. Hello, everybody. We are streaming live to Facebook. The first time that we've had the opportunity to do this as the North Carolina Outward Bound School. We have an awesome group of panelists here to have a discussion with you today. We want to thank you for joining us. We're gonna take a couple minutes to just let people get their last bowl of ice cream, finish up dinner, and hop on. We recognize that people have to get to our Facebook page, and in the meantime, we've got a few announcements that we can certainly cover. But want to welcome you into the conversation. It's just called Conversations with Outward Bound Instructors, a Facebook Live event with the North Carolina Outward Bound School. I'm super stoked to be here. Like I said, we have an awesome group of panelists. I'm pretty sure that they're psyched to be here. Y'all, what do you think?
Hi. Yeah.
Stoked. Everyone's
Hello.
stoked. Good. We're gonna have some fun tonight, and I hope that you're ready for that. So, to kick things off, my name is Devin Kearns, and I do staff recruitment for the North Carolina Outward Bound School. I'll be your MC for tonight. Hopefully, you're here because you're interested in what it's like to be an Outward Bound instructor, or you're a fan of OB, or somehow you randomly stumbled across this Facebook Live session, and that's great too. We're glad to have you any way that it comes. We really want you to walk away from this, having learned something about what it's like to work for OB, or maybe even just something cool about one of us. We've got awesome personalities coming to you live tonight. Above all else, we really want to create a welcoming space to hold with you, so that you can learn and participate alongside with us. So, on that count, I want to welcome all of our viewers tonight. To our Black viewers, we welcome you in. We want you to know that we love you. We're with you right now. We see your pain that you're going through, and we want to let you know that we stand with you. Our eyes are open at NCOBS, and recently we've been doing a lot of work to critically look at all of our systems from the top down, just to make NCOBS a more just and inclusive employer all around. So would love to shout out the Avarna Group for our partnership and their help with that. That's been awesome for us. You'll see that we're flying the Black Lives banner tonight, and we really want to recognize how vital of a movement that is in our history right now. It means a lot to so many of our staff. And as a school, we want to elevate Black voices and stand with you for justice. So you can go check out the Black Lives Matter website. They have a petition up right now to call for investment in our communities. If that's something that you align with, please go check that out. Also want to throw out a really great shout out to the HBCU Outside group on Facebook. So that's HBCUS Outside. Find them on Facebook. They just put up their new website. They have a lot of cool initiatives that they are launching this fall. They've been silent for a little bit, but they're ramping back up. And so go check them out. Go check out their new website and what they have going on right now. To all of our Indigenous folks, we welcome you in. We recognize that we program on Native Cherokee land, and we honor your stewardship of that place before us. So welcome to the conversation. We want to welcome in our Latinx community. We want to welcome in all of our communities of color, all of our lesbian, gay, bi, transgender, queer, non-identifying, non-conforming folks. Welcome to our conversation. Our international audience. I hope we have some viewers over in India saying hello. Hopefully so. Our veterans, thank you. Thank everybody for being here. We love you, and we are glad that you are here rocking with us tonight. So we're about ready to jump into the discussion. I'm sure you want to meet us. You want to meet these folks, which we'll have a chance to do in depth. But again, just another minute here as we run through a few announcements. So we are in an election year. We just want to encourage everybody to get out and vote, register to vote. If you need to get an absentee ballot, come participate in democracy. We appreciate the diversity of voices in this discussion this year. Make sure you go out and vote this year. Also, this Saturday, August 29th, is Serve Your Community Day. And so we're using the hashtag, OB Serve Your Community Day. And if you want to participate and share what you're doing, no act is too small. Get involved this Saturday and commit to serving your community in some way, and check out what other people are doing. A couple ways that NCOBS is helping out. If you're in the Asheville area, Mana Food Bank is actually looking for low-risk volunteers to help support their mission of ending hunger in Western North Carolina. They need people to help sort their food. So if you're able right now and low risk, they'd love to have your support. We got a link down in the comments. Check that out. Also, the Charlotte Mecklenburg school system is going remote and they need help with Wi-Fi. So we have a link where you can go on and donate to the Charlotte Mecklenburg School Foundation and help them get Wi-Fi for their students this school year. So, you know, if nothing else, you have no other ideas, check those out and come help us serve our community this Saturday, August 29th. If you're with us, you're on our socials, but we've got our tags and hashtags up. You know, particularly if you're interested in the field of outdoor education and get involved, I would encourage you to check out the ncops.org/careers to follow up on this conversation and check out the jobs that we have. But tonight it's time to go. We are talking to Jason Linguanti, James Mixon, Kristen Keene, and Sarah Goldman, Outward Bound staff. And we're going to give them all an opportunity to talk a little bit about themselves and how they got into this role. And then we're going to open up into some discussion questions and really facilitate what OB means to these folks, how it informs their everyday life, and what advice they'd give to you as somebody who's interested in getting involved. Y'all ready to do this thing?
Yeah.
All right, rock and roll. So first up, I'd like to introduce Jason Cheesy Pockets Linguanti. We had a wonderful training together. He came into Outward Bound in 2018. He's 33 years old. Before this, he was doing wilderness therapy and traveling a lot. He is a lead instructor with the school, works in our Florida and mountains landscapes, and really enjoys getting his boat rocked in soul-crushing 14-day William Joel courses. Jason, tell the people a little bit about yourself and welcome.
Hey, thanks for the intro. My name's Jason. I'm from Warwick, New York originally. And yeah, I guess, I went to art school, which is kind of not really in the line of outdoor ed. But after college, I spent about 10 years like doing anything from national service to international service in AmeriCorps and Peace Corps, and kind of working with people mostly. And that paired with my love for the outdoors and backpacking, doing outdoor activities, I felt like doing some form of outdoor leadership or outdoor ed was the direction for me. And so finding wilderness therapy and exploring it in that way, which was also backpacking based in the mountains, and then kind of moving my way into Outward Bound, which was way more of a intentional and like expedition based type of learning. So that's kind of what interests me. It kind of paired together a lot of my past life experiences in both like service work and working with youth, and also being outside. I don't know, I guess like my instructional style and stuff like that, I'm a goofy person. And also I tend to put a lot of effort and energy into something when I care about it. And I really care about this work that I do. So I try to make it as impactful and intentional for the students. And I think, yeah, to keep myself like energized and good and goofy and like there for my students, I definitely pull a lot of inspiration from the beautiful places that I get to work in, and like the privilege of doing that. And also the people that I'm working alongside. I think I've learned so much in the 2.5 years that I've been with the school, and it's definitely like inspirational to be working alongside other really driven, talented, incredible human beings. But that was me.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jason. Yeah. What a pleasure it is. Even the training that we got to do together, we had so much fun. So I can only imagine spending a full course out there with you. Thank you so much. Next up, joining the organization in March 2016, lead instructor and course director, works in Florida and the mountains, completed a full expedition, a full trek, which included backpacking, cycling, and canoeing to complete the Mountains to Sea Trail. Before OB was living in Colorado, working backpacking and dog sledding courses, currently 30 years old. Please introduce or welcome lovely Miss KK, Kristen Keene. Kristen, welcome to the conversation, and yeah, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hey y'all. I am originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I kind of found my way into this industry after a lot of soul searching in college. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, but after spending a little bit of time in the education department at NC State University, I realized that a conventional classroom was not going to be where I could spend all my time, and kind of shifted paths and found my way into the outdoor ed world, and was lucky enough to find some really great mentors in my professors in that program who happened to be former NCABS instructors. So, once I graduated and headed out to Colorado to just like be free and find myself a little bit, once it was time to come back home to North Carolina, I knew that NCABS was my first choice. And I was lucky enough to come straight back here. I find a lot of, like Jason was saying, my inspiration does come from the community that I get to be a part of. And just in thinking about a couple of years ago, I was listening to a podcast and it was about running, and someone said, like, stop trying to be the fastest and strongest and best and strive to be notorious for constant improvement. And when I heard that, I just like immediately thought about the Outward Bound community, and the folks I get to be around all the time make me want to be better all the time. And that is why I stick around. And that is like what I hope to instill in my students when I get to spend time with them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It shines. You add so much to this community in that same regard, and thank you for that.
Thanks,
Up
Seth.
next, the youngest of our group, coming in at 24, creative, self-prescribed creative. He is an instructor in our Mountains Base Camp. Joined the organization in 2009, so on a fast track. Instructional highlights include participating in an intercept course, a 28-day wilderness expedition for at potential teens. And before this was a climbing coach. Please welcome the conversation, James Mixon. James, welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, and I guess since you called me creative, I'm no longer self-defined.
Touche.
Yeah, so I grew up actually over in East Africa, in Nairobi, Kenya, which was obviously very far from North Carolina. And so my path to NCABS basically began because I started climbing in high school, and it became this like medium for understanding myself that was really unique and was teaching me things about myself that I wasn't able to learn in school, and then I went to university and got to study philosophy and all these big ideas. But ultimately what the experience I learned the most from in all of that was I got to go on a NOLS course, which is a sort of a cousin of Outward Bound during college. And in those 3 months learned a whole lot more about being a human than I did in the entire rest of my formal education. And so I started coaching climbing during university, and one of my co-coaches had worked for NCABS, and he told me, he said, there's only one place you should be going right after you graduate, James. So that's how I ended up coming to NCABS in 2019. And yeah, and the reason I got there, and then the reason I've stayed in the field, is because I think this kind of learning, the expedition style experiential education, is an increasingly important way to get distance and space from how crazy busy our lives and schedules and schooling is in the rest of kind of our normal lives. And it just lets us look at, what does it actually mean to be human underneath all of that, with clarity that you don't get a lot of times. And that's that kind of community and learning and intimacy is really addicting in a good way. So that's why I still do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, Marjorie Buckley founded the school under the premise that it was education for the soul. And I think what you're saying speaks right to that. So we're still carrying it on to this day. 1967 was our first course. Thank you, James. Appreciate that, man. And last, certainly not least, we have Miss Sarah Goldman. Came to the organization in 2019, has ascended through the ranks to become the Outward Bound Professional Business Development and Program Manager, and is killing it in that role right now. Started out as an assistant instructor, formerly an Arlington County police officer, and she, as she describes it, only 40 right now. Sarah Goldman, welcome to the conversation, and yeah, tell the folks about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. For folks who've heard me talk about Outward Bound before, they've heard this story, but there's never been a time in my life that I didn't know about Outward Bound. In 1981, my mother was a student at Table Rock in North Carolina here in our mountains base, and I was just a wee 2 years old at the time. So there was never a time in my life where I didn't know that Outward Bound existed. My mom, on her adult course that she went on her solo, decided that she wanted to go to medical school, and at like age 30 something came home and changed her entire life and went to medical school, and that was like completely changed the trajectory of her life, and she credits Outward Bound to that. So as a result of that, my dad immediately went on an Outward Bound course following my mom's, and he did a dog sledding trip up at Voyager. And then my parents told my brother and I that you don't have to go to college, but you do have to go to Outward Bound. So it was like our one family requirement. So I did my student course when I was 14, as early as I could, as young as you could, at the Pacific Crest Outward Bound School, now known as the Northwest Outward Bound School. And that just continued to put me on a path of a love and an appreciation for the outdoors and an appreciation for everything that Outward Bound brings. For me, one of the reasons that I'm here is that I think our vision and mission as a school, which is changing lives through challenge and discovery, is perfectly aligned with my personal vision and my personal values, because I do believe that seeking out voluntarily things that are hard and challenge only serves you in the later times when there's things that are hard that are involuntary. So we can go out here and we can pursue things that are challenging. We can provide direct evidence for ourselves later in life of what we're capable of, and we can have those experiences to recall and support us through times that are really hard, like what everyone's going through, right now with COVID-19. So that's what's kept me here at the school. I feel really fortunate to be in the position that I'm in, working with adults and really providing and serving our mission. So it's also great to just work around folks like the people in this beautiful Zoom room. So thanks for having us here, Devin.
Yeah, of course. And I remember how cool it was to hear that it was, pretty much a rite of passage for you to go through Outward Bound, and it had just always been ingrained in your roots. And, we find that a lot with folks who come through. We've had their children come on course. It's just kind of that type of education that's hard to get everywhere else. So really cool to hear that. So thanks everybody for being here. We're going to jump into our discussion questions here. So feel free to add in and just riff off what the speaker discusses as you feel compelled to contribute to the conversation. And Sarah, I'd like to start with you, as your path into NCOBS was a little bit atypical, I would say, for the average instructor. Coming in after a career in another organization, I think a lot of people put themselves, go on a risk to decide they're going to become outdoor leaders and really dive head on into pursuing this as a career. So, when and what made you decide that you wanted to pursue outdoor leadership as a job? And yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. I mean, so, I think I was 37. So I think it was 2018 or so when I applied and decided to come to try to work for Outward Bound, which is a unique time to be entering the organization and applying for a job that is entry level, where a lot of folks are normally in their, early 20s, sort of seeking out that role. It's interesting. I'm traditional and I'm non-traditional in the sense that, coming to an outdoor education career at 37 is late, but I also did the traditional route, which was working for another organization through college. And right after university, I worked in outdoor ed and then went on to pursue other work from that. So it was sort of coming back to my roots in all of the ways to decide of I had a significant life change happen for me. And that was something that spurred, a lot of reflection and a lot of, where do I really want to go and what is going to, really, again, come back and serve the soul, and also allow me to do the things that are my strengths. And so that was the decision, was to kind of come back to NCOBS, or to come to NCOBS. I'll say that specifically coming to the North Carolina Outward Bound School was about community. I lived here in Nashville at the time, and the folks that I was surrounded by were a lot of the old timer North Carolina Outward Bound School staff from 2 decades ago, 15 years ago at least. And those were like my peers and friends here in town. And they're like, why don't you go work for the school for a little bit? And I was like, you know what? That is an excellent idea. And I'm just absolutely thrilled that I did that, because I think it's just been probably one of the better decisions I've made. So I feel really fortunate for that.
Wow. When you finally like set yourself on the idea, okay, I'm gonna do this, what stood in your way? What did you see as like immediate obstacles to the pursuit of actually coming on with us?
Well, yeah, right. So as a kind of a non-traditional entry point of being later in life and having kind of really established life, in terms of, I lived in town and I had things that, that I wasn't in a transitory phase of just kind of my life in general. So, one of the things that's hard is, that decision to, take a salary or a wage that's not as high as normally something I would have at this point in my life. And to sort of uproot things and come to live at a base camp and be around a community that's different than necessarily my immediate peer group that I would have if I was in town. So like that felt like a big hurdle to overcome. And the support of the school and the community that's provided and everything the school does to bring people on board made me feel like I belonged so quickly. I would say that the number one thing that stood out to me, and especially having come from other employers, during our new staff training, I remember we got, trail mail. We got mail in the field from like the staff at base who did not know any of us. And it was just this effort for them to say, hey, we see you. We're so glad you're here. I hope you're having a great training. We can't wait for you to get back. And I remember sitting there reading that and thinking, wow, like this is such an effort, and this is like strangers who are like, hey, come be in our community. We want you here. And, the idea when we walk onto a base camp and somebody always says, hey, welcome home, it really does feel like home. So that idea of the hurdle of having to uproot my life to kind of transition into a different lifestyle, like the school made that really easy. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's because you really do have to pick up sometimes, some people come from across the US, internationally, and that's a huge barrier. How about others? Was there, it seemed in Sarah's life, it seemed like there was a life event that really compelled her to get back to her roots. Other people, what was that touch that convinced you wanted to get into this field?
Oh, go ahead. I guess I would just share as like someone who did come straight out of college. I think, I didn't have all the perspective of being later and like having a career and figuring out the next thing I wanted to do. But I think I did get a lot of really good advice from a few people in my life as I was graduating who were saying, and I think this was at least very helpful for me, to say like, no matter what you want to do, no matter what you're going to end up doing, this job will help you do that thing better. And that has totally proven true to me. And in some ways, Outward Bound has like already, it's pointed me in directions I never thought I would be going that are different than Outward Bound, but it's because the job, it just puts you, in such close contact with people. And so having people who could tell me like, don't, if you don't know what your long-term plan is, like this will do for now and you'll get a lot out of it and you'll help some people. So that's kind of what pushed me, to take the plunge.
Nice. I'm sensing a lot of community vibes, the NCOBS network, the Outward Bound network really is deep. And I think it's awesome to get the encouragement of somebody who's been in there, to talk to them, to hear, even if you just connect with them a little bit, to understand what it's like and see that, see what the community is like. That's important in any organization, but definitely one that we're proud of here at NCOBS. Jason, did you want to add in?
I was able to take an Outward Bound course, the 50-day instructor development course, which I highly recommend as like a way to kind of really get a good feel for the school. I took it in the Northwest Outward Bound School in Washington State. And yeah, I think a part of the big draw for me was like seeing the community around it. I also really appreciated, like, I could not afford to do that course. And luckily, like through my AmeriCorps money that I made, I got scholarship money for doing 2 years of service, but also Outward Bound, like scholarships, like most of the course for me as well. after I applied for that. So it like enabled me. And so I think that for me, like, was really exciting to be like, oh, great. Like this is more accessible to more people. And I think that's a big draw for me in coming into the school. And I just wanted to touch on what Sarah said as well about like age. I came in when I was 30 and still like, I did feel a bit self-conscious because I think a lot of the times, and I'll talk about this later too, like outdoor ed is promoted as like a stepping stone for young people to like do something later on. And I think for me, it was just really recognizing that like the true like substance of what I was doing, it was like, it's really good work and it's helpful and it requires so much drive and compassion and motivation. And like, those are what I'm willing to give. And I'm like able to do that. And this is the right thing for me to do. I don't care how old I am. I don't need a specific age to bring that to people and to do that type of work. So it took a little bit of soul searching in there and a little bit of push for myself to recognize that there isn't an age cap on like bringing those experiences to people. So yeah.
Jason, I just want to like what you just said about like it being like a stepping stone. I think what I found really that's amazing about NCOBS is that it's a landing point. You know, it's not so much like this is not the place you go to the next place. Like if you want to work in outdoor ed, you're coming likely from somewhere else to get to here. And I think that like that is really well felt and just feels great. And it's like it's a very different vibe than being at like a summer camp or being at like a smaller outdoor ed type institution. I mean, you're really becoming a part of something that's a lot bigger than that. So that's definitely felt.
Yeah. We certainly appreciate and value that diversity of life experience, the education that you can bring from, you know, the amount of time that you spend. And Jason, like you said, as long as your cup feels filled up to give, there's a lot of giving to be done as an Outward Bound instructor. As long as you feel that, there is no age cap. And in fact, you know, a diversity of life experience is encouraged and welcomed here. You know, I also want to hit on the fact that you said you did a course. I think it's a great idea to do a course somewhere, get a taste of for what it feels like to be on a multi-day wilderness expedition. So great stuff all around. We're already running over. That's okay. We're going to keep it rolling into the next question. And so, James, you mentioned earlier in your introduction that you really resonated with NCOBS because it felt like a place, you know, education of the soul. Those were my words. You know, when you think about the pillars of Outward Bound, you know, which resonate with you? And to build on that, why do you think that is important work to do for people's lives?
Well, actually, if I could even like take it way back before the pillars were even created, I think that the history of like where the school came from is really compelling to me. In that it really is, it's like a form of education that was born out of crisis and was born out of, you know, Kurt Hahn and others seeing the failure of an education system in Germany in the 30s and 40s and saying like, how do we have all these fancy schools and we're still failing to like educate people as humans? And so, and the Outward Bound pillars that, you know, then developed out of that really reflect that, that there is craftsmanship and there is this element of skill and dedication we're trying to teach, but above all compassion. That's the bottom line. And I think that, yeah, and just being brought into the community as an instructor, it's like the one thing I always know is like Outward Bound people and instructors can be really tough. You know, they're tough people and they tell the truth to you. And, you know, sometimes you got to hear hard things about yourself, but the bottom line is compassion. It always ends there. And so that's a compelling thing to be a part of. And it definitely makes you want to carry it forward as well.
Nice. Where do you think that fits in like right now? You know, like why is this, why do you feel that work is relevant to like the everyday life of people? Maybe that's a canned answer, but I'm curious.
I mean, holy cow, have you been on the internet? You know, just the way that I think that as amazing as, you know, the 21st century is, there also are so many barriers in between, you know, face-to-face real life interaction with consequences and accountability. And I I think for students of all ages, because you know, obviously like we work with a ton of youth, but also with a lot of adults, and getting people to think, what role does compassion hold in 2020? I mean, I've always said I wish we could get the whole Senate onto an Outward Bound course, and maybe we'd make some progress.
Totally. Get people, yeah, bring people in from all over and help them with that common experience where you see the human side of the other person, really have to understand them. Others, what do you think? Where does NCOB serve in the day to day? What is the work that you're doing on the ground? What need does it fill outside? And James, thank you so much for taking that answer.
I think the biggest thing is that when you're on a multi-day expedition, especially with a stranger, that long amount of time of exposure with that person makes you see the impact of your actions towards them and your language towards them. Whereas like now we live in this world where our interactions with people are so short, and we don't see the consequences of those interactions. And that I've been thinking about that a lot, kind of being now back in this other world where I'm not in the woods for a long time with people, is like I still want to think about the consequences of those interactions, even though I don't get to see them now.
Nice. Well, KK, you know, I think you touched on the question that I have for you. You've been working in the field of outdoor education for a while. And as an instructor, as somebody who gets to facilitate, or maybe you talk about your CD role, what do you find most fulfilling about the opportunity to be in this industry?
The thing that I love the most and that keeps me motivated is constant problem solving, and that like no 2 days at Outward Bound are ever the same, ever. And that is so gratifying to me. There's just this feeling, right? Like you roll into your campsite at midnight and it's raining, and you've got a group of 15, 16-year-olds that are like cold, wet, tired, hungry, and you just do the next thing, right? And to watch, you know, at the beginning of an expedition, you're doing the next thing, and then 20 days into it, they're doing the next things. And to get to see that progress with any student of any age, but then now as a CD, I also get to see that in my peers, and help people continue to develop. And so it's that constant, my role is constantly evolving, like literally hour by hour, my job changes, and I get to constantly ask myself, where do I serve in this moment, and move around. And it's so engaging for me in a way that I haven't found anywhere else.
Yeah, there's no 2 days on course that ever really feel the same, nor many days in general at Outward Bound that feel the same, which is so cool. A lot of problem solving. James.
Well, I think that just made me think of, because you brought up creativity earlier. I think it's one of the most creative jobs I've ever had or done. It could, just like KK was saying, it's like, you know, not only are you constantly problem solving as an instructor, but you also have a lot of autonomy to create experiences for students. And you know, you can if you have a students for just 5 days, you're like, how do I really make this a memorable experience? You're like, well, you know, who needs trails? Let's just let's just go through the bushes over there, or let's go up over this face since we have our ropes with us anyways, and whatever. And so there's all these options to just like play things by ear. So that can actually, as an instructor, can be a very like satisfying outlet for your creativity.
Totally. It's constantly building, and it's totally stimulating, right? You're always working to help, to educate, to serve. And then like KK said, you really do get to see the fruits of that labor over an extended period of time. You see education take place and character development take place. I would agree that that's also been rewarding for me.
I think what KK just said about you just do the next thing is so important for right now, because I think so many people, there's so much uncertainty, and we don't know what next year is going to look like. We don't know what next week is going to look like. We just do the next thing. And if we can all just stay focused on sort of doing the next thing for right now. And in that same way that, KK is mentioning, it's like you adapt and you change your plan and you be creative, like James said. And it's sort of that same thing where it's like right now is a lot of humans in the world, we're all having to be really adaptive, and just continue to do that next thing. So KK, that's great you said that.
For sake of time, I want to keep going, but KK, did you expect that to be like what you found most fulfilling about the role when you came in?
No, when I first came in, I was ready to just like be this superhero all the time and just like, running around in the woods and being super buff. And then like having it distilled down to these like constant relationships and interactions is just so much more important. And just like there's so much more room for development there.
Yeah. It's really a beautiful thing when you're most excited about stepping back and really building those relationships. That's awesome. Jason, we turn it over to you. The field is an interesting one. And it definitely comes with its pros and cons. I'm curious where you kind of hope and see this field heading in the next couple of years, and particularly like, what challenges are we facing now and why does that inform where you'd like us to go?
I mean, so it's an incredibly charged time in the United States and the world, for many reasons. Whether it be something like from dismantling systemic racism to battling a really terrifying and like impactful pandemic to climate change, all of these things, give a sense of responsibility to every organization and company and person and individual and family. And I think one thing that first comes to mind is if you look at what people have been saying in this chat, just about how impactful this work is and how important and how challenging and how professional of a person it requires to do. I think outdoor ed is still not really respected as like a profession really, or a career, especially in this country. I get asked the question often, I don't know if anyone else does, but like, what's next? Like, where are you going next? What are you gonna get a real job? And this job feels very real. Like that night that KK described, I can relate, and it felt very real, like 12 a.m. getting into camp, living real life. And so, yeah, I think like just with that, like, being compensated with a higher wage, a livable wage, to make it more of a sustainable workplace, and things like benefits. Those don't come along very, very much in outdoor ed professions. So just making those more of a priority to support instructors and like actually make it a career. And I think with that, that spills out into justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion as well. So creating a space where it is a livable wage, a career, and like a job that other like people that are not from a higher socioeconomic background or a stable financial background can come into this work and be able to do it. I also think just like really digging in and doing that hard work to create a space that is more comfortable and inviting and open to everyone. If you look at this chat room, it's like just saying it out, like it's all white people. And that's predominantly like the race that is like working in the outdoor industry. And we do get students from all races and sexual identities and backgrounds that come through our school. And I think in order to make them feel comfortable and supported and like they want to work in the outdoors, like we have to have people working here that also they can relate to and that look like them. So I think like, with what's going on now and, the financial crisis and the school kind of like schools all over shutting down and like kind of taking a break, it's a really great opportunity to really take a good look and rebuild and create those spaces and reach out to those partners to really rebuild better in like a really great way that is more open, inclusive, and empowering to all people to want to explore this kind of work. Because yeah, I just know that it is an amazing opportunity and I want everyone to be able to have it. And I'm willing to, like, I'm hopeful for it, but I'm also willing to like put in that work and put in that effort to make sure that it happens. Even if that means like stepping back myself and listening and providing that space. Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot in there. Thank
So
you.
much.
Yeah, thank you for that. We have to do better. We have to support our staff. We have to make
Yeah.
this feel like a sustainable career, because it trickles down. Our students, see our staff. They want to do this. They want to get into this field. It has to be something that takes care of people.
Yeah, and I think like also, everyone also people talked about, feeling really supported by the staff that were already there and learning so much from them. And I know like KK, like working with KK in the field in Florida in the Everglades, I worship those times because I've learned so much from her. And so, in order to keep those staff around for generations of instructors, so that the new folks coming in can feel like cared for and feel like they have a really solid training to make them confident and impactful out there in the field as well. And that all comes down to sustainability and support for instructors in the outdoor industry.
Yeah, I hope we go there too. I am also alongside with you on the warpath to helping make sure that happens within NCOPS. So, and I appreciate all of the people, all of you viewers, all of our donors, all of the staff and employees who are working to make that possible. But we do need to take care of our staff. That trickles down. So others, where do we see the field going? We have just a few minutes before we close out, or responses to what Jason has to say.
I think just like in your response to the question about where we want to see this field go, a thing that I've been thinking about a lot is, and this isn't just at Outward Bound, it's in the outdoor industry in general, we've become a little bit obsessed with this idea of like, get outside your comfort zone. You should constantly be getting outside of your comfort zone. And I just really want to challenge that to all of us working in the outdoor industry. We work with a lot of people who don't spend that much time in their comfort zone in their day-to-day life. And I would just really challenge all educators in general, but especially outdoor educators, as that mantra is like, let's challenge ourselves to get creative about how to make outdoor spaces in someone's comfort zone, because they are for us, and that's not true for everyone. The woods is not a healing space for everyone, and how do we bring people in a more inviting way and take the time to make our spaces comfortable, instead of just like right out of the gate doing something that crushes someone and makes them never want to go camping again. That is where I would like to see our field go in the next few years.
I'd love to see us take our skill set, which is creating containers for difficult conversations, and scale that to a space where I think it's so desperately needed, especially right now, where we are just like, the talents of our instructors and our facilitators is to be able to manage hard conversations and to manage and help communication and to help people understand each other and bridge some of those gaps. And I just think it'd be, I don't know what that looks like, but I just think it would be amazing for us to move into some spaces where we can help with dialogue, not insert our voice, but just help with the dialogue of others that need to have dialogue together, and just sort of serve as facilitators for that, because our skills are really around creating those spaces. So I think that'd be just a really cool place for us to start heading.
Yeah. That kind of makes me think of what Jason was saying about this very much being a real job, and this very much, addressing real issues, and preparing people with education to have hard conversations and have discussions and really have the dialogue that we need for positive change to happen in this country and in the world. So awesome. Well, we are winding down. We had a great question from Ryan Wagner, talking about some of the qualifications that staff may need and some of the opportunities. So we definitely have people who are engaged with this conversation. Quick wagon wheel question go around is, someone who's excited to get into the field of outdoor education, leadership, even working at NCOBS, what kind of advice do you have for them?
I will say, in terms of like qualifications, like I think my big focus at first was like just being super self-conscious about like the gear that I had, and like whether or not I was gonna like look cool or like have the right stuff. And really I I did it in like the cheapest way possible. Like I slowly acquired things over time because I just couldn't afford to buy like all of the new fanciest, most beautiful gear in order to like start getting out there and exploring backpacking. But really for me, like it was reaching out to friends and family and people that I knew that liked being outside and like doing hiking trips and slowly getting used to backpacking and being out there. And then also like really having a conversation with outdoor schools like Outward Bound to make sure that like I would be able to do a course with like limited funds as well, so that I can learn those things and get in that world. And on that course, I got my wilderness first responder as well. So I didn't have to shell out all of that money right off the bat. It was like part of that trip for me. Which was great. And I, slowly but surely, now my gear's a little bit cooler. It's still not cool, but but yeah, worked my way up. And like, it doesn't have to be an overnight acquisition of like full outdoor garb and skills. Like it can be a slower process over a year where you're starting to figure things out. But also like our school offers things like, the ability to come in as a logistics coordinator and work that year and maybe do a short course during that time and really like get to know instructors and get out there in the woods doing those activities, so that a lot of our instructors have worked their way up from that into an instructional outdoor educator role. And then working outdoor ed at like a year-round camp taught me everything I know about like teaching and working with kids. And I like had no idea when I went into that. So it helped me work my way up to a more intensive job like this.
I think in that same vein, the biggest piece of advice that I could offer anyone is just be honest about where you're at with your skills. I think a lot of times people get intimidated by the outdoor industry and big names like Outward Bound in general, and kind of feel the need to prop themselves up. When in reality, like your passion and your trainability are the most important things. It's not as important that you know how to build every climbing anchor that exists or that you can paddle class 4 whitewater. Like it's much more valuable to be around an instructor that is passionate, compassionate, and wants to learn and can be honest about where they're at with their skills. That to me is more valuable. And it's okay if you don't know everything. And that's been the great thing about North Carolina Outward Bound is we offer so much training. I learned so much and I'm still learning every day.
My advice would be jump in, like get uncomfortable and be willing to tolerate that discomfort, knowing that that's going to lead to great outcomes, and like know that that's what we ask our students to do, is to like come be uncomfortable and feel out, it is feel out of your comfort zone, but it's like just come and take the risk and take the leap and just see where it goes. And I think part of that is like, if that feels like something you don't want to do, then it's like, okay, take a self-assessment of that and take what data that's giving you in terms of, what does that mean about how you want to do this job or not do this job. But if it's something where you're like sitting on the fence, I would just say like, hey, this is experiential education, come have an experience and just go for it at this point.
I think that the only thing that I wanted to add to that is just to like give some examples of how many different kinds of people end up working for Outward Bound, because there are all these skill sets that Jason and KK and Sarah have been talking about. Like, you learn the outdoor skills and you learn the education skills, and you can do that in all these different kinds of ways. And you also, I really appreciate what KK said about like the in-house training at NCOPS really is phenomenal. And there's a lot of it. Like it's just the number of days you get just for professional development once you've been hired is really, really transformational. But then the other thing I think is cool is like whatever else you are or love to do or like have been doing your whole life, there will almost always be a way to incorporate that into your work. Like I've learned so much from instructors who like their whole life before they came to Outward Bound was like improv. Or they were in the military, or they worked on a trail crew, or they were an academic, or they were on Wall Street. And it's just, there's always a way. Like I'm a musician, and one time somebody brought me a ukulele on course, and that became this big part of the experience. And so I think like that's a cool thing to remember, is that there are all these things you bring in, but it in no way makes every instructor the same. And whatever else you're bringing in is going to be such a huge part of what you're giving to your students as well.
Nice. From my vantage point, I would echo so much of what was said here, and I think the point about going out there and really working with young people, students of all age, but really teenagers and young people and young adults, and being an educator first and foremost. We feel great about our ability to get you in the field, get you some experience, train the tech skills. It's a lot harder to train those people skills and to know how to manage a group over extended periods of times, to work in that mentor and coach role and balance that. And so, go get engaged with people, go be a tutor, be a mentor, plug in with your local community, and get that exposure in that educational role. And then we can help you get some of that tech training. So. Awesome. Well, amazing discussion that we had. Really only scratched the surface of it. We could go on for a lot longer, I'm sure. I'd love to, but folks have other things to do tonight. So I want to thank each of the panelists individually, or I guess personally, for participating. Facilitating meaningful discussions is what we do. It's what you all are artistes at as well. So, you can come check us out if this was really interesting to you and you want to learn more about being an instructor. Check out ncobs.org/careers to see what we look for as our minimum requirements for jobs, and also to check out some of the course offerings that we have, both remote and in person, to come out and get that experience like we talked about. Don't forget, August 29th, this Saturday, is OB Serve Your Community Day. So remember to use that hashtag, commit to serving in your community in some way. And lastly, getting involved with the Outward Bound community, the NCOBS community, and knowing instructors and what they love about it is so important for you to understand. So folks, I just want to go around, give you the opportunity to sign off, maybe tell anybody how they can get in touch with you or see your work, project, blog, anything that you have going on. But please let them know how they can plug in. So anyone can start.
I'll start. Thanks for tuning in. I'm just excited to see where this field goes, and it's kind of cool to be on here chatting to people who are looking into this and excited about this despite all the crazy things going on in the world. So I just look forward to the future of outdoor ed and like our place in all of it. That's it. Nowhere to plug in for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for being here, man. KK, how about you? Is there any work that you want to promote? How can people find you? What's your send off?
I am sleeping indoors these days, and I just want to impress upon anyone thinking about this that even when it's raining, I miss my job a lot. And I'm just really excited to get back to work whenever that is able to happen. If you want, you can check out my Instagram. It's @itskk again, with the caveat that any cool pictures that you see from expeditions over the last 3 or 4 years probably had some helpful funding from Outward Bound as a benefit that we offer to our staff. So if you're thinking about, coming to be part of our community, that's been something I've been really grateful to take advantage of.
Awesome. And thank you so much for joining our discussion tonight. Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, we're working hard in the town office, trying to, keep on moving and introducing new programs, remote programming, working with kids, working with adults, all those sorts of different things. So, always you can find me at ncobs.org/professional, which is the OBP kind of landing page. And then my Instagram is probably not as exciting as KK's, but it's at sarahgoldman.inc, and you can find me there for sure.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah. Loved having you on tonight.
Y'all can find me on Instagram as well. I do some storytelling kind of stuff that is kind of outward boundy. And so if you like this kind of stuff, it might pique your interest or further motivate you to do the job or not do the job. So if you just search my name, James Mixon, or my tag is @Kilele Project, which is a Swahili word. But yeah, if you search my name, you should be able to find it.
Awesome. Yeah, you may like it, you may not. It may help you, it may not. You never know. but check it out. He's doing great work. We'll get all of those links and hashtags into the comments so y'all can find that later. Once again, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful night. Have a safe and restful evening. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your support in NCOBS, and we appreciate your interest in this discussion. You know how to get a hold of us. Check out our social medias or send us an email. We'll see you next time we do something like this. Have a wonderful night, y'all. Thank you so much.